Welcome to Soul Talk. This is Nancy Roland Weber, and we are soul talking with a whole bunch of people who are friends and some I don't know. And it is decluttering your mind and your environment and what we can do about it. You ever have a desk filled with stuff to do, or a kitchen table like some of us might have, with every horizontal surface kind of busy? What do you do? So this is a talk that is an open door for all of us to talk about and just skim through and see what you can find. Okay? Some things will be useful. Some you don't need. And if you don't have clutter in your mind or your environment, boy, are you lucky. But it's work. And I know that. So good for you. It is hard to keep up in today's world, isn't it? Hope you enjoy. Ready? Let's help each other. Let's get going on declutter. Let me ask you informally, who would like to speak? You can either just raise your hand, and there's an option of raising hands below.
I finished my green apple. Oh.
So, who would like to share why you're joining today? What's going on?
Well, I could take my video down and show my desktop,
Oh,
and I'm drowning in paper, smothering in paper.
oh, so I'll tell a funny story about that one. It's one of my favorite stories. There was a time my desk had a good 4 to 6 months worth of pileup. And I had, at the time, Young Living had
What's
a
CB
child called Awaken, which I love, and they had it in 15 mil, and they had it in 5 mil. So I had gotten both because I like to carry it around, and I was empty of the 5, so I'm pouring the 15 mil in, and I spilled it all over. And I quickly took it and poured it all over. I'm talking 50 drops. I called in, my assistant was here. I said, get over here, hurry up, and put it on her. I called my husband in, hurry up, what do you want? Come here. And I put it on him too. There was more and more and more. I mean, it was like half of a 15 ml bottle.
Wow.
Which is 200 drops, I think, no, about 160 drops. So anyhow, that day I cleared my entire desk. But, and here is the other side of it. What works for one doesn't always work for another. We all have to understand that. The Awaken, which is very useful for me, it seemed to organize my perception and slow down the overwhelm at looking at a pile. So when we're cluttered inside, what's your mind? I want you to consider computer. So a computer starts having problems, and the keyboard, some of the keys aren't working right. The function key doesn't work right. Your brain is a computer. If parts of it are not working right, that's one of the first steps about anything we do, right? We have to get that computer working right. It cannot judge. So when we are in clutter, do you like the clutter? Anybody? You would like not to have clutter? The first step is not to be annoyed. Being annoyed will only get you more annoyance. So the very first step is accept that it's there right now in the moment. I look at my desk and a lot of times it's empty, but then I know I had to do like a 5-minute mini movie today for the book, and everything was behind showing. Can't have that. And so I just shoved everything off to the side. And I don't care. It wasn't upsetting at all. But if I was upset, that's the clutter up here. What am I pouring in? And what can I control? So some of the steps I've used, you may identify with, but I want to hear from you also. And it's either raise your hand like this so we don't over talk each other. So I have this funny part. I can get very OCD, that the slightest clutter makes me nervous, but I can also, in the midst of a project, not see a single thing except what I'm doing. But I have learned my symptoms of being overwhelmed. If I'm in the house and there's something on the floor that got there somehow and I don't pick it up, I know I've got a problem of being overwhelmed because the slightest thing is too much. So when you look at clutter, or when you feel cluttered in your head, if you look at the whole picture, you're looking at a mountain. How do you climb up a mountain? Very slowly.
One step at a time.
Exactly. Baby steps.
Oh, great.
And you have to be kind to yourself about that. So for me, I look to the Young Living products because of what they can do to keep me in both hemispheres, number one. But also because even if I didn't know what they do in terms of chemistry and supporting the mind and anything else, the terminology was created by Gary Young on the words of all the oils. So when he blended them for something like highest potential and took care to know what that actually meant and how it was, the term, and we know this for mindfulness, and we know this with mantras, when we focus on something very strong, right? And we consider it. So I want you to consider one powerful, positive word right now in your mind, and just take a few seconds and close your eyes for a moment and just imagine the meaning of that word for you specifically. Whatever that word is, maybe it's one or two words. And when you stop, very easily, if you can play with that occasionally, where you focus on something that positive can be okay, but more than that, powerfully capturing good feelings. So when a single or double, two words, no more, captures that great feeling in you and makes you want to consider it again and again, you have eased up a pattern in the brain. You have implanted, if you do it enough, and overrode some things that were in the way, let's say. And that shows up in your own perception of whether you're overwhelmed or not. Because we know that we're doing the same thoughts again and again and again and again. It's a machine. It isn't who we are. It's not our soul. It's a machine. It's a computer. It's your download programs that are created over, depends on what you believe. Was it created neurologically in the neural tube, witnessing and feeling everything that goes on in the womb and outside? Or was it before that? Was it other lifetimes? Was it ancestral history and DNA passed through? There's so many things that make up our thoughts, but they're not who we are. And that's the big difference. When we know that, and when we understand that, then we take charge. Creative people, I see Gus is on, and he is young and brilliant at his music and songwriting, incredibly. And when I know he's focused on that, he's clear as can be. There's no overwhelming. So I want you to look at something you love doing, right? Anything you have loved doing, you're not overwhelmed, are you? When you get into it. Do all of you have something you get into so strongly that I think of it as almost blindfolds? You're not seeing the rest of it, you're seeing what you're doing. And that's usually because both creativity and application, nonlinear and linear, both hemispheres are involved. And when they're involved together, more and more, we're at peace. So who would like to share what you're looking for specifically, or anything? Comments? I hear you, Gus.
So I love that you mentioned songwriting. I definitely feel like when I am in that zone, I'm channeling. So there's no room for what's stressing me outside. But when I'm not songwriting, I definitely have had moments, especially these past couple of days, and of getting caught up in all the what ifs, all the energetic. I don't know if I'm picking up on somebody that's close to me or if it's coming from me, to be honest with you. But sometimes I just get like uncontrollable bombardment of just anxious thoughts. And then I have to go meditate or walk or something, and then it'll
Okay,
calm
hold
down.
on. Gus, so you just said when you're overwhelmed, anxious, you go meditate. How do you grab yourself, right, in order to calm it down?
In the meditation?
Yeah, what's the bridge between anxiety and your meditating? What's the bridge? What do you use to get yourself into a quieter space?
It takes a minute, but really just concentration and conscious effort to let go, put things down, all
Thank you.
sorts of.
That's it. That's what I was looking. Okay, there has to be a release. And we know in Chinese medicine, for instance, the liver stores anger, right? We understand, that's what they say. The liver store anger in there. So many of us have had occasion to be disappointed, hurt, angry. Those are pretty normal emotions, but depends on how strong it is and how long it is. And so many years ago, I started using two things for it. It was Juvaflex over my liver every day, just whenever I could, on and off. I'm not consistent on some things. And then because of the word, even thinking it, if I don't have an essential oil handy or whatever, release. I want to release what's in the cells that are emotional, charged, right? They're charged emotionally to prevent any other process happening if they're in the cells. Dr. Candace Pert's book was the start of many looking at called Molecules of Emotions, where she proved that emotions are stored in the synapses between the nerves. And we're talking mostly, when we come to that, it's trauma. But what I always felt, trauma is not what you think it is always. It's not the events out there so much. Just like you said, you don't know where the anxiety is coming from. Trauma can be anything. It can be chemicals in the air. It can be food you ate. It can be the thoughts you have. So, and it can be your perception of who you are. I think back to a moment in time where I was a guest teacher for a class who was script writing at the School of Visual Arts. And I don't remember what the process we were doing, but this kid in the back sat there very quietly and he said, I can't do any of this. I said, why? He said, I have such dark thoughts. And I burst out laughing. See, it's easier if you do it for others, harder to do it for yourself. At least for me, much harder. And I just cracked up laughing and I said, okay, I'm going to give you 2 words about dark thoughts. You're in a script writing class, remember? He said, okay, what? I said, Stephen King. He cracked up. I said, so put it on paper. Make use of it. So that's the truth in certain things about clutter. When we clutter our mind with chastising ourselves, whatever it is, I don't care what, we all have different ways, but not feeling we're enough or wishing some things away, whatever. When we do that, we're doing what the kid did in the back of the room, condemning oneself in that way. And when we do that, we set up a pattern. So let's say most of us, when we're little, we absorb, we think we're all we're the center of the universe when we're very little, no matter what. And there we are in the center of the universe, and something happens, and we're not necessarily blamed, but we will eagerly think it's our fault. We know if children are very young during a divorce, they take it personally as if they did something to cause it. Right? In that way, that pattern is cement. But if you were 5 years old and needed it, and you're 40 years old, or 30, or any age, adult, you don't need it anymore. It doesn't work for you. But have you changed it? And that's key to making a difference about cluttering up, because what you clutter in your mind is expressed by your view of your outside. Right? So if I were Terry, for instance, I had a pile of paper now, I would look at it and go, I am going to take a few of you at a time whenever I feel like it. Have a conversation with that pile. I do it all the time. And I go, you will have to wait until I'm ready. And then I will put you in nice little places that you will love to be. And that way I am destroying the opportunity for the thought to run around my mind again and again. You got to get to it. You got to get to it. And I'm not saying it works all the time. I'm saying you have to start somewhere. Anyway.
I can see myself doing that. All I can say is I'm very happy that my kids don't live with me any longer, because they would think I'd really lost it if I was talking to the piles of paper on my desk.
Really? Okay, so I have a friend who moved to, she used to live like half a mile from me, Lavinia Plonka, who lives now in Asheville, North Carolina for a long time. She is a Feldenkrais expert. You can look that up if you want. Feldenkrais, K-R-A-I-S is the last.
How do you spell it?
Feldenkrais. He was decades ago, many decades ago, had serious injuries and cured himself, healed himself by motion and movement and knowing the pathways. And he was amazing at it, and so is she. And she taught it for a long time. She and I had one thing in common, big time. We talk to inanimate objects all the time. We even name them. So does Charlene, because I'd rather have fun than not.
I do talk to inanimate objects. I've just never talked to my piles of paper before.
They're waiting to hear from you, so you may as well say hello. You know? So it is taking a little ridiculousness into the
Yeah.
mix,
I love it.
because the brain, it's kind of funny. Many years ago, when I knew I had, pardon me, sucky relationships with men. I have a lot of proposals, but terrible relationships. And so one day I used an audio tape I made for a client. I made it for me too. And up came an idea. I realized that if I imagined myself walking with my best partner in life, everything, just perfect match. And it had to be male and female, regardless of your sexual orientation, had nothing to do with it. And I knew it. It had to do with nonlinear, linear, in the guise of male and female. And that they had to have a fight, an argument. And the female, who always said, okay, right, did something else called jam that brain track. I knew it in the moment. It was the first time I ever did that. And so I just walked on the beach with this favorite friend. And then my favorite friend said to me, let's go see the war movie. And I said, no, I don't want to see it. Oh, no, we'll go to it and then we'll go something else. And I had heard that theme in my head too often, of just seeking approval, not getting approval, just going along with the story, many years before. But I had never faced it the way I faced it in that moment. So I shot him. And then I imagined his spirit came up and said, why'd you do that? And I said, because he didn't understand the word no. And he didn't hear me. Well, if he hears you, will you reconsider? I said, yeah, I will. So spirit goes in the body stands up, he's fine. He goes, I am so sorry. I didn't know how painful. I said, what part of no didn't you get? He said, well, now I do. How about if I go out with my friends to see that movie and then I go out with you to see what you like? I said, on one condition. He said, what? I said, when you come home, if you're angry, if you're venting, if you're nasty over the next few days, you never go to another war movie. Okay, not a problem. We were closer than we started, which meant that I had made the gap between the two hemispheres talking to each other and made it a little better. And the next day showed it immediately. Gus?
When you say you shot him, you mean in your mind's eye?
No, I made a picture, a movie. And in the movie, I shot the man. And in the movie, his spirit rose and talked to me. And in the movie, his spirit went back in, he rose up as a whole body, fine. And what I realized is think about how we first kind of break apart in some ways, right? Where we're disappointed in our lives or we're hurt or anything that piles up. What I found is these two have to get along and make friends. And the easiest way I ever saw it after that was little 3-year-old going into the kitchen, mommy and daddy are sleeping, kids are all, and it goes to the refrigerator and gets juice out and pours it and is so excited with his right hand. It's wonderful. Takes it. Oh, so proud of himself. He's going to do it with his left. Does it with his left because he's creative. And boom, it's all over the floor. And so mom comes in, we're using a mother, pardon me, but she comes in and she's not very nice. And she goes, what did you do? I just cleaned the floor, etc. Enough of that. That child will not trust their own intuition, their creativity, etc. If it was a different mom walking in and going, oh, you made your own juice, how fabulous. Congratulations, first time. Why do I see a butterfly on the floor in the color of orange? Oh, you spilled some juice, but it's pretty, isn't it? Let's clean it up together and see what else we can do, etc., etc. That child grows up with confidence between here and here. How many of you are caretakers of others and not caretakers of yourself. That's where it begins. It's that separation of, you can help everybody and you can seek approval and you can do all that, but who knows that you should be so confident. If you get enough of those are trauma. They set a pattern. So you want to change that pattern. When it comes to my whole life, when I got into Young Living, I was in shock at what I had been missing for so many years. I'm in it since October 2002. And I was so surprised by how quickly I could change so much in it. But yet, still, Awaken was an accident. It's recorded, so anybody who missed that story, you'll get it in the beginning. But Awaken oil was a total accident, how I spilled it and covered myself and got rid of so much clutter outside, which told me that my computer in my head was not quite organized well. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to wait to spill all that. Does that make sense? And so we do know that everything begins, everything, without fail, begins with that. I see people in chat, pardon me. I don't know if, man, this is so funny. It tells me I'm a guest now. I love it. And I have no idea why. Oh, subtitles is out? No, that's closed caption. CC. It should be up. I am so sorry. They changed a lot of it here. Let's see if that helps. It's CC. And okay. Office space. I can't, unfortunately, I don't have my regular glasses on now. Office space and papers. Stacy. And journals. Oh, our challenge? I'm going to go there for a moment. Stacy, you write in journals? Can you unmute and just answer?
Yeah, I write in journals. I'm a part-time freelance writer, so I keep notebooks of interviews
Okay.
and
Label the notebook so you know what's in them.
yes,
Okay. And then
Yep.
do you use edit dictation to just pour it into a program on the computer?
no, I don't do that.
I do. I have journals for everything, every class, every idea I have. I've been having them since I was a kid. But in 1975, I had journals for trusting intuition and making techniques up for it, etc. And then my work with law enforcement, I had separate journals and all of it. And then, of course, I wrote on Dynamats and anything else and napkins wherever I had an idea. But I would take them all, store them, and when I had time, pour them into programs in the computer, and then put them on a USB also so that I would still have them. Does that help you?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that.
Okay. Makes life
Thank
much
you.
easier that way. Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do that a lot. And then I go through the journal. In fact, I'm going through one of the books I finished recently. And I go page by page, just flipping and making, making corners on the pages I want to dictate, and the others that I don't need, I rip out. And then I go through it and dictate and get it out. And by the time I'm finished, I can get rid of the journal. It's really handy. I hope that helps.
yes, thank you.
Sure. And beforehand, if you diffuse something like cedar wood and a little frankincense with it, you get more of your support between the hemispheres. And it doesn't matter which frankincense from Young Living, but it is from Young Living. We now have, I think they're out of stock on the deep set spectra, which is a remarkable one. So it's even stronger. As soon as it comes back. Okay, so recognition, you recognize the shift. Jessica, merge that you do not prefer and choose to go a better direction. Okay, yes. And prayer, pray to God. Which essential oil would you recommend to concentrate, focus? Okay, so I got into all that a long time ago with music first. And in 1970 something, there was a book that came out, Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain. And one chapter came from Bulgaria. I'm just going to make sure I have the email. So in that chapter, they spoke about how anyone, including dyslexics, can learn 8,000 words in 8 hours of any language. I later found out it was very true. What they did, and the study went on for a year, the government of Bulgaria paid for it, and the book that originally came out was called Super Learning from that chapter at length. And I was friends with the authors, so they said, permission to use the idea. And the idea was 4/4 time, 60 beats per minute music. So they took Bach and Beethoven and Vivaldi, and they removed all the arpeggios and crescendos and evened it out, and it lowered blood pressure right away as one of the other outcomes. So that was in 1979, I think it was. And so I created my own. I lived in Croton-on-Hudson at that point, and right down the road from me were a whole bunch of innovative people. And one was called Bob Monroe, who created the Monroe Institute. And then people like Steve Halpern and a whole bunch of others took the super learning without giving credit to Georgi Lozanov, the founder and the researcher. And so, but they all used it and it became famous. And then binaural, it was hemisync, they'd call it, they'd say something bilateral hemisync, and then it was and is binaural. So I only had the super learning at that time, and I made my own music and tape, so I would have it on all day while I was working. Because if you ever had anesthesia? Anybody? Surgery, anesthesia? If you've had it, you know it does affect the function of the brain, gases. And so I knew right away, this is back in 1965. And so I looked, and then when I put this music on 3 months later, everything improved. Took about 3 months. So I added music to my toolkit, my power toolkit. And I continued. And in 2002, because in between, I was introduced to a lot of both metaphysical and science, both ends. I was blessed to know a lot of good people. In 2002, I was introduced to Young Living. And I had the good fortune a year later to see Gary for 3 days and learned from the best, and then followed him everywhere. And what I found was there's things that we don't see in ourselves, but we can find out what it is that we need to work on if we look sometimes outside, if we're overwhelmed inside, if we can't quiet our minds down, if we can't go to sleep. That's clutter in the mind. And when we look outside, if we go, oh my God, I can't get through any of this, it's too much. That's the environment. However, when I added that in, I realized if I'm adding that in, then you need the full spectrum of living lifestyle. I was all organic, but maybe I needed air purifiers. Needed a still for water, gradually we added everything in over time. And it depends on who you are and what you can afford. You pick something to lessen the burden in your life. Clutter is I woulda, shoulda, coulda. You know what I mean? And if we take one thing and make a difference for ourselves, one thing, you lessen the burden, and you are also saying, I'm okay. I'm better than I thought. I can do something. So tackle something that you haven't tackled before about clutter in the mind or clutter in your environment. Either way works. For focus, I always start with something that I believe in. I use the oils, I put on the music, whether it's relaxing vibes or whether it's binaural, whatever appeals to me in the moment, I put it on. I just took a beforehand, before the class, it was frankincense and balsam fir, well, now Idaho Grand Fir. I took some deep breaths of it to focus. So you have to choose, but if you think of yourself as the hub and all the spokes are parts of your life, then you pick something that you can work with. Not all at once, just one hub. And you take a look at what you can change, one thing. Because that mountain is no longer a mountain. It's the seeds that grow a healthy mountaintop where the air is clear and you're not overwhelmed by everything. For me, it's always been Young Living Oils because they work and because I understand how they work. It's also the fastest and easiest way for me to get response inside me. The music works and other power tools you come across work, of course. I have friends who use everything you ever heard of and they go, do you want a dowsing rod? No, thank you, I've had them. My friends had them. I don't want anything else. I try and keep it simple for me. Pick something to change, one. And if you're like Stacy and you write, it's smart to say, I just did this and I really feel glad I did it. You know, it's not so much affirmations, but acceptance that there is change in the air in your life and that you are the orchestra leader of it. You're the boss. Your computer is not the boss. But to get the computer to hear and listen, we have to pay attention. And so for me, it is, okay, I'm dealing with something in the last few days that was kind of weird for my body. But every so often, my body goes through weird stuff. And I just look and go, okay, what do I need? Well, first things first, I want to balance out the anxiety with the calm. So peace and calming goes right over my heart. And it goes right over nostrils, I like the roll on, and right on my carotids. And so I will pick and choose everything for a situation. So when you're going to make one step, some people can focus, some have a hard time getting to it. So first you have to take the very first step, which might be believing I am going to do it, believing it. And trusting the rhythm of what day you'll do it, what moment you'll do it. Trust it. Don't argue the point. Sometimes we make the change when we have to, and sometimes we make it because we're ready and we don't want to wait for have to. So there are so many ways I go through Young Living specifically to get there when I need it. I love some of the emotional oils, the hope and believe, but most of all for me, I think it's Inner Child and a few others that I really enjoy. highest potential, abundance, because abundance, the first time I used it, I realized it wasn't about money. It was about the infinite source of creation itself pouring through my life. And that was so exciting to recognize that the wisdom comes from the creator, the infinite intelligence that is there in life itself pours through all of us. We have to be open and receptive. So, anybody have any thoughts, questions? Areas you'd like to ask?
So, Nancy,
Sure.
this is Charlene, yes. Yeah, very, very interesting. And I see myself in a lot of what you've said and that clutter. And I, over the years, have tried many different things. And I feel like I can embrace some things like the music. I used to use it when I worked full time in the school system and got behind in my paperwork and would put on some classical Baroque music, and it worked every time. I find what you're saying about the Young Living oil intriguing, though I also will admit I still don't quite grasp how you got to this fund of knowledge, save for the fact that you've been doing this for a long time. But as a beginner and somewhat novice, I do use oils, just oils I pick up intuitively. But I don't think they have that
No.
impact. Yeah,
Right.
it don't
No.
have that
I
impact.
think part of it, everybody's very different about all of it, but the part that I would say is fundamental is I'll share something I learned back in, I can't remember. So I have to be careful because this is being recorded. We are now commencing part 2. We put the Zoom on pause because essential oils fall under the personal care industry. And we could not discuss that on a recorded event. If you are interested in anything about essential oils, I've only studied it 22 years compared to everything else I've studied, but 22 years, just let me know either by going to my website, fill out a contact, and you could also get my free weekly newsletter right there. Sign up for it, and you can put a contact and say interested in essential oils. And we'll notify you of the next free unrecorded talk. Okay, so now we're going back to the conversation we started with a man named Dr. Max Gershon, who was the known founder. I don't know if I shut the first one or not, so you may either getting two. If you want a recording of it, you'll have to email me, okay? Or private message me on Facebook and give me your email address and your name. Okay, so Max healed her of TB while others here in the country were institutionalized for 10, 15 years with TB at the time. Max had clients worldwide. He treated thousands and thousands of them with end-stage cancers. They all knew his work. And he said he never lost a soul except for those who detoxed too fast. It backed up the body. And I think it's the same thing with clutter. You cannot get rid of it overnight unless you hire a whole bunch of people and you go to a hotel for a little while and come back and it's all done. And you live with it that way. Other than that, it's much more important to harness it yourself. Not fast. It's a detox in its own way. It's no different than what I'm dealing with now physically. For me, I am going very slow, making changes that I need because I want to feel better about certain things physically. Rhythm. If I rush it, that'll just be anxious. That's not real. Rhythm is everything. Love your hub, love your soul, and treat it kindly more than you treat the outside. Sorry, caretakers understand how hard it is to be a caretaker at all. right? When you're taking care of somebody else who needs you, you're giving your all, and that's beautiful. Why don't you do it for yourself?
Hey, Nancy.
Yes.
I
Yes.
just wanted to mention something when you were speaking about essential oils, or even when Gus mentioned meditation, different things like that. And this is very compliant. I think of it all like pre-paving. So
Hmm.
it's not that any of the tools is like the key, so much as it's a way to help ourselves to get into that better feeling place. You know, because sometimes you can find it easily where maybe you're having a good day and the sun is shining and you're like, oh yeah, I can clean out my closet because I haven't worn those shoes in a long time or they hurt my feet. But you know, when you need just feeling overwhelmed and don't really know where to turn, sometimes it's not so easy to pray or do any of the things. So what can we do? And one of the great first things to do in any moment is to take a deep breath, right? You've taught that a deep, slow 6 count in and then 8 count out. Do that a few times. A little bit of deep breathing, have a glass of water, and think a good thought. You know, remember something great about yourself, like you know, or even just, you know, maybe my closet doesn't look like the way I want it to right now, but it can look better. It can look better. And if for some reason I hit a roadblock, then I'll just message, you know, one of my friends and they'll encourage me too. So like there's just
Ah,
ways that we can have support.
absolutely. Thank you. Accountability partner. You have people here interested in the same thing. I always tell anybody who jumps on anything I do, feel free to exchange your cell phones, email addresses, or whatever right now. Put it on chat, take a phone picture of it or whatever. Feel free. If you need other like-minded people, you find them that way through any classes, through anything else that you're interested in, and share. So accountability partners, like you say, Jessica, and I know Barbara is one of yours, right? Fabulous. Accountability partners work wonders.
And motivation is the essential oil blend that really helps her with decluttering. So just throw that out there.
Well, you know my husband's story.
I do, but it's a great one to share. A little bit on the wrist.
Yep. When I first moved here, yeah, it was not pretty at all. It was, clutter would be a very mild form. And the basement was not a basement, it was a dungeon. And it wasn't a finished basement, but it was loaded with everything and anything. So one day, having used the oils, we were married quite a while, and he would not ever look down there, I guess. I had motivation, and I said, come here. And I put it on his wrists. And he said, why? I said, I don't know. Just not thinking of anything, just it came to me, put it on his wrists. 1 week. That week, half the basement was emptied. I was in shock. And it led to being able to change it. In today's world, you'd never know what it was before. It looks like a big open spa room with a gym and a 4-hour sauna and everything I'd ever want, and easy. So I know that for me, motivation, and for him, motivation worked. He loves inner child. It seems to soften old wounds for him. Everybody does it differently, but we do it. That's the point. We need, no matter what, we need support. We're on this earth. So accountability partners, friendship, checking in with others. I mean, you're all my accountability partner right now. You may not know it, but that's what you are. When we do that, we have to first do it inside. If we don't do it inside, it doesn't stick. It just doesn't. So it all begins inside out, like Pixar. It's why it was probably the most successful animation ever made. For a reason. We know it's supposed to be inside out, but because we're out here and we see things and we have to do things and we have a mind, we want to use it. We sometimes get lost in that. And people like Gus, who's very creative, and anyone who loves to do things that make them feel alive in them, dance was always the one for me. Until I couldn't really dance much, comparatively speaking. But then I moved into anything else I could. And I found that as long as you go deeply inside, deep inside, and you get yourself to understand that you have the connection with the entire life force throughout the universes. You are part of it. And so your soul wants you always to be okay because it wants to deliver from our Creator all this possibility in us so we can explore. We're explorers. But if we're exploring on the outside more than in, we have to balance. We have to find that balance. So, any last things before we shut? Any last comments or questions? Did you put your email addresses so you can share? And man,
I have a comment. Let me
sure.
see.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Adishina, and I've been, going through this, trying to declutter. It seems like I move a pile of papers from this place to that place, and I have all these knickknacks and things and
Mhm.
clothes, all of this kind of stuff. And so
Which
last year,
bothers you most?
huh?
Which bothers you most?
What bothers me most is that it stops my creativity.
Yeah, but I'm saying which one of the things you mentioned bothers you the most?
All of it.
Okay, pick one though. Pick one.
Papers.
Okay, are those papers absolutely necessary to have local to you at all times?
No, and that's the thing. It's like, I have, files on yoga, files on Black history,
Yeah,
papers on,
okay, hang on.
this
Hang
and
on.
that. And it's like,
Where are they?
well, I have them in file cabinets. I have them on my desk. I have them
Okay.
under my desk. I have them everywhere. But what I was trying to say was that last year, when they had the Lahaina fires, I wanted to do something for one of the people there.
Mhm.
And so what I did was I went through my closets
Hmm.
and I got two big bags of stuff because they had nothing. And so I says, okay, what can I give away and just pass on to somebody who really needs it?
Mhm.
So I was able to get rid of two huge bags, that way. And just recently, I was a little, I was sick, and so I needed to clear uh, dust and things like that. And so I did another cleaning where I says, okay, let's do the closets again. Let's go through each drawer again. Let's all those CDs and DVDs and cassettes that you've been saving for 50 years that you never listened to, let's get rid of that stuff. And so I actually I actually took things to Women Helping Women, which is an
I know it.
organization for
Yeah.
violence women.
Yep.
And I'm taking stuff on Friday up to the consignment store to see if I can get rid of it, make a little money. I'm I'm taking stuff to friends of the library, all the books and the DVDs and the
But you
CDs
are.
and I
So you're
don't need.
decluttering everything.
Huh?
You are doing everything.
Well, yes, I just said, I need to clear clutter so that I can think, so that I can be creative, so that I can write again, so that I can, do other things. And I can't do it with all of this stuff around me.
Okay, so you also said at the beginning, the ones that are still bothering you, and I'm saying, don't let them bother you. Either put the little knickknacks in a box or boxes and put them away and see if you still want them in a while, because you may want to give them to other people or consignment. You already are on a roll. Well, but you can't do everything at once. And you know that you're doing a part each time, and you've gotten rid of an awful lot, and you have a lot on your plate to deal with at the same time. So don't be mean to yourself. Be okay with it all, right?
Well, no, I feel good about it.
I
I
know
don't.
you should. Yeah,
Mhm.
of course. So when you started, you were saying, well, this bothers me and this bothers me. I'm saying, nah, look at all you've done. It's a balance and a rhythm. So you're doing fine.
Yeah.
You're doing fine.
Mhm.
So,
And
anybody?
I'm clearer.
Yeah. And you'll know because you already know what to do. So the next thing that bothers you, you'll also find a way. You've got it. That's an example of stop wondering about what to do. Just do something. Anything to put it in action moves it. Whether it's internal thoughts, whether it's external, just anything. Just take a step. Even if you're not going to get it done immediately, Kathy, like I want to get rid of that one thing. I'm going to put it aside and think about it. Okay. But trust the feeling you get when you're going, nah, you better get rid of it. One day you'll just get rid of it. So be kind about it. If you're not kind to yourself, you can't move it forward. Doesn't work.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts or questions? I don't know if anybody said anything. You want me to talk about any of it? We're all done? Everyone have other emails that were sent?
Oh, I had one question.
Sure.
You talked about the Young Living app. Is there a Young Living app?
There's a Young Living app. It's not, well, there is one, and it's called I think Essential Oil Reference Guide, Young Living. It would
Essential
be Young
Oils,
Living.
Young Living Essentials, and then there's
Essential Oil Reference Guide.
Young Living Essentials, Young Living
No,
Oil.
not Essentials, Essential Oil Reference
I'm
Guide.
going to my Play Store right now to see what it's called right now. Hang on a
Yeah,
second.
I'm on
There's a new one from Seeds of
Hey,
Time.
Nancy.
Yes, Jason. Hi.
Hi, good to see you. Good to see everybody. I looked it up on the app while we were talking, and it's not called Young Living. It's called like Reference Guide or something, but it is Young Living once you open it up and look at the details.
Okay. So Kathy, are you in Young Living?
I do have some Young Living Essential Oils.
Can you see the picture? That's what it looks like when you go to your Play Store. It's that reference guide for essential oils.
Reference guide for, okay, I'm on an Apple
That's the
device.
one I use too, and it's really great. There's a subscription component, which I didn't have for a long time, but it's like $20 a year, and it's so good. It's worth it.
Reference guide
You
for
can look up
essential oils.
everything. It's wonderful.
I mean, it's mostly compliant too.
If you don't know, I assume everybody here knows Young Living. If you don't know it, just connect to me, and if you have questions, ask. Just send me an email. And
Okay.
I don't know what you need to know, but most
Yeah.
of you already know. So thank you, Jason. Thank you, Terry.
Yes,
Sure.
Okay,
thank you.
I think
I
we're
just
done.
wanted to say one other thing when you're talking about the fragrances. There's a really good movie that used to be on Netflix, but now you might just be able to find it on YouTube called Stink.
Yep.
It's about a man who couldn't figure out why the pajamas he bought his daughters for Christmas had a horrible smell. And he ended up going to the White House and everything. It's really, really good movie.
That sounds fabulous. I think I heard of it, but I never saw it.
It's good. very good. You already know all the information in it.
Thank you. That's wonderful, though. Good. Okay, I hope this is helpful. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much, Nancy. Nice to meet
My
everyone.
pleasure. Good seeing you again. Bye-bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye.